Good morning and welcome to Saturday special of Dr. Lamba's Awakening. Oh, you must be wondering, where has the sense of politeness gone? There were times when you would get angry, you would like to insult and you would insult the opponent, but the insult would be so camouflaged, covered, that it would appear to be an insult only to the person who receives it. Others might think it to be meant of irony or even of flattery. But then there is now a sense of decadence and a cultural decline. And the verbal insults these days are almost invariably scatological or so sexual, provoking a blizzard of asterisks and whenever and wherever. We have apparently forgotten the gentlemanly art of insult. Why? The most recent example, of course, outstanding globally, was Trump. The way he was insulted by the media, by the public, by the opponent, in the most degrading terms, was sometimes nauseating, sometimes infuriating, but never giving a sense of a pleasure. As a matter of fact, insult should be such that you convey the meaning and yet people enjoy it. Just yesterday's news that the chief minister of a province, West Bengal, insulted the prime minister and the governor, the head of the federal government, and the constitutional head of the state. She kept them waiting for half an hour. She was supposed to have a review meeting of the hurricane with the prime minister. The prime minister had traveled from Delhi to Bengal for that meeting. And instead of having a review meeting, she just handed him over the documents prepared, the report prepared, and walked out after 15 minutes, of course, saying that, okay, I have to go somewhere. And now Prime Minister would say, okay, don't go. And then it took a further turn that the presentation was not given, which was supposed to be given to the Prime Minister. This was an attitude of careless arrogance. But is that enough? And that's not only there. You look at any part of the world, you would find, except in the communist countries or in those established places like, I would say, UK, Japan, where still there is some semblance of civility, some decency left. This section of Mamata Banerjee in India is in fact symptomatic of the decline of the cultural values where you would at least show respect and regard to the constitutional and administrative head. The Prime Minister first face to face acrimonious meeting with this state chief minister leaves much to be desired and leaves a bad taste in the mouth. Now, I was reading a book, very interesting book, The Art of Being Right, and the subheading is 38 Ways to Win an Argument. And this is written by the famous German philosopher Schopenhauer. 38 ways he mentions how to win an argument, and nowhere does he say that you abuse a person, you show disrespect to a person, you insult a person. He examines a total of 38 methods of defeating the opponent with the idea that there's logic and even the darker insult can be there, but it has to be couched in decent manner. As a matter of fact, they are unintentional insults, which are jarring, boring. You wish somebody, belated wish, somebody's birthday, and you send a greeting next day, belated birthday. That means you don't give a regard to that person. Even while wishing, you have insulted that person. Use of abbreviations, stupid abbreviations, show total lack of care that the wishes or the abbreviations, TBD. No, TBD is total bitchy day, I don't know, or to be decided, or birthday, what it is. Use of derogatory terms. These are ignorance or stupidity which creates these insults. Intentional insults. And I often indulge in that, I don't deny. Looking through. You look through a person as if he doesn't exist. Do not shake the proffered hand. This is a height, somebody offers a hand and you don't shake it, turn the other way around. Shows that you are demeaning that person. Leave without saying goodbye. Ignore any comment and veer away from the same. So, as I said, why is it? Once the ability to come up with a clever insult that could not be repeated in polite society was thought as being ungentlemanly. I remember the classic cases of the English repartee with Shaw and Mr. Churchill. Shaw had sent an invitation to Churchill to come to one of his plays. And there were two tickets and says, come, I'm sending you to two tickets. Come with a friend if you have one. And the Churchill, amused, sent a reply back, cannot possibly come the first night, will attend the second night if there is one. Now, absolutely gentlemanly, what one is implying is that you are a person who has no friend, the others implying that your play is so stupid that it's not likely to have even the second night. Oscar Wilde, who may have returned to the faith before the death, was another man of letters. His statement, some cause happiness wherever they go, others cause happiness whenever they go. Now, very subtle, but very clearly, the person for whom it's meant would understand it. And the immortal was, he has no enemies, but he is intensely liked by his friends. Now, even telling somebody in a manner which is oblique, which is slanting, which is couched in a language which is not scatological, not abusive, but it can be sharper than a razor cut. So, gentlemanly art is basically that your language has to be absolutely clean. You remember the frequently used by Churchill, I have the simplest taste. I'm always satisfied with the best. And as writer and editor, Mark Twain accumulated the literary man's usual collection of enemies with whom he enjoyed twitting. To one dull critic he wrote, why do you sit there like an envelope without any address on it? Did not say you look stupid, but you are an envelope without any address, clean, glazed look. A more intolerable one, and this was considered to be ungentlemanly. I did not attend the funeral, but I sent a nice letter saying I approved of it. Approved of it is for the funeral. So this sort of a thing. Coming back to Shaw, he appreciated Twain's wit. and said, Mark Twain and I are in the same position. We have put things in such a way to make people who would otherwise hang us believe that we are joking. Now, this is a gentlemanly art of insult. Say things, if you say it the way people say it now, stupidly, they would hang you. But if you say it in a certain manner, in a proper manner, you will be considered to be a part of a joke. As a matter of fact, today's political bandage is lame. It's lamer compared to the wits of the past. Of course, Churchill was a classic when Lady Astor told, if you were my husband, I would poison you. And in response, if I was your husband, Lady Astor, I would happily drink it. Sir Stafford Cripps, when he came to India, created a furore. The Cripps Commission, you see, remember, was one of the major stars as the lightning post of the Indian independence movement. But he was the frequent target of Churchill's attack. I can think of no better step to signal the inauguration of National Health Services than that a man who obviously needs psychiatrist attention to be the first patient. So it was practically calling him madman. To compare that with what Sonia Gandhi talked about Modi, calling him Maut ka Sodagar, the merchant of death, the killer, the butcher, or Rahul Gandhi, saying, Joe is a thief, and repeating it ad nauseum. So you have got to see that just using abusive terms shows your capacity not to be creative. You have to be creative in insulting. So the two parts of insult, gentlemanly part is one, it should be civilized, no scatological reference. Second, it should be hitting. I'm not saying don't hit. You remember during the coronation festivities for Queen Elizabeth II, there was a state ball at Buckingham Place in which the old uniforms were to be worn. And Sir Churchill was dressed in a bottle green uniform of the Lord Warden of King Ports, a ribbon of the Order of Merit. And he spotted Bevan wearing a blue serge suit. And he said, I think at least on this occasion you might have taken the trouble to dress properly. And Bevan said, Mr. Prime Minister, your flight buttons are undone. Simple. They were not undone. But then, and what has happened now is since general election, since 1952 in India, the political attacks have plummeted so low in taste and content again. Invective is recognized. And the Greek art was elevated to great extent to a fine art. I mean, say, you look at the Greeks, whether it's Cato or Cicero or Seneca, they criticize badly. You remember that when Catilina was being criticized, in the whole of Italy, there's not one single poisoner, gladiator, robber, assassin, parasite, will forger, cheat, glutton, western, adulterer, who has been corrupted, indeed any nasty individual of any kind who would not be obliged to admit that they have been Catalina's enemy. Now, they are criticizing Catalina, but not saying that he is a cheat. They are not saying he's a glutton. They are not saying he's a robber. They say the people who know him are that. Implication is the bird is known by the man or the bird is known by the company he or she keeps. So since Catalina's company is that of robbers and poisoners and forgers and gladiators and assassins and parasites and wasters and prostitutes, so he can be no better. So by implication, the person is innocent. So instead of being directly concerned, this was delivered 2000 years back. Would you ever think that the Indian political leaders, or for example, the American political leaders, would ever talk in this civilized tone? It's a reflection of the social and other evils which brought down the Republic of Cicero. He was serving for 63 years. That's what happens. When you break the boundaries of civility, then the character of that country falls. And that's what's happening in India. That's what's happening in Pakistan. That's what's happening in Nepal. That's happening in USA and to some extent in Canada. The angry rhetoric, the language of the gutter in the election campaigns is not a sign of our civilization. It's not a sign of being culturally conscious. In the 19th century, Benjamin Disraeli talked about the culture, and he ruined Robert Peel's career with a single speech saying he is a burglar of other people's intellect. Search the index of Beethoven from the days of Conclave to the termination of the last reign. There is so no statesman who has committed political petty larceny on so great a scale. So he is, in fact, criticizing him, but the words he uses look like a praise. As for example, in USA there was election for the president, and the way the person spoke, do you know that my worthy opponent matriculated at the age of 15. Imagine matriculated, as if doing the matriculation is a bad thing. And he is monogamous, which is a good quality, but the way he said it. So the first is the use of the language, then civility, then, indirect language. You praise a person, stating facts, but the way you say is important. Don't forget, you can be devastatingly deadly in your speech, but you need not be in any way indulging manners which are subhuman. The ideal insult was Joyce and Hickson had married. Mr. Hicks had married the lady Joyce. And Lloyd George said, well, he has earned, because he was very rich, an unearned increment. And the law judge at once interrupted to say, I can think of no better example of honor increment than the hyphen in the right gentleman's name, because he had, along with the wife, he had changed his name as. Wit, invective are icing on the cake. And the content of civilized debate on the issues of public policy need icing, but they are to be wit, they are not to be abused. They are to be oblique, they are not to be direct. Sadly, there's so much of lacking today that our political life and our social life, which is a reflection of political life, is becoming really, really insulting. I was watching a TV the other day. And can you believe the anchors, the way they shout? And one of the anchors, right on the TV, I think it was Aaj Tak, Indian TV channel. And this man used absolutely abusive four-letter words on the TV. I was shocked. How can you say that? How can you do that? Lord, they say the man was created in the image of a God. And if this is the image of God, I would pity the God, not these people. But whatever it may be, we have lost the gentlemanly art of insult, and we need to insult people. Let's be very clear. There are people who need to be insulted, but they should be insulted in a manner which doesn't belittle you. When you insult in wrong manner, then you are in fact insulting yourself. But let indirect, civilized insult be the hallmark of your personality. Do not make the mistake of insulting in a manner that reflects badly on you, your upbringing, your scholarship, your intelligence. Learn the art of gentlemanly art of insult, and you would be much better, much more successful politician or a social leader, whatever you want to be. Think about it. Thank you.